The world knew Juliet Prowse as a vision of beauty and grace, a woman whose presence on stage and screen left audiences mesmerized. She danced with an effortless charm, her movements filled with passion and precision. She had the kind of career that many could only dream of, working alongside legendary figures, starring in films, dazzling on Broadway, and captivating fans across the globe. But there was something else, something the world never saw. Behind her radiant smile and dazzling performances, there was a secret she carried, one she never allowed to surface. It wasn't just a fleeting moment from her past. It was something far deeper, something that followed her through every triumph and every hardship. Even at the height of her fame, when cameras flashed and admirers surrounded her, there were moments when she seemed lost in thought, as if remembering something she could never share. Those who knew her best sensed that she was guarding something, but no one dared to ask. She had perfected the art of keeping the world at a distance, of maintaining an image so flawless that no one would suspect the truth she was hiding. But even the most well-kept secrets have a way of finding the light, and Juliet's was no exception. As the years passed, whispers of her hidden past began to emerge, but they were never enough to reveal the full truth. People speculated, guessed, and wondered, but Juliet remained silent. Some believed she had left behind a love story that could have changed everything, while others thought there was something even more shocking, something that if exposed would force the world to see her in a completely different light. What was it that she had worked so hard to keep hidden? And why, after all these years, was the truth finally coming out? There was something about the way she carried herself, even in her later years, that suggested there was unfinished business, a story left untold. But Juliet was no ordinary woman. She had built a life on discipline and mystery, and whatever she had kept secret had stayed locked away for half a century, until now. Now the world was finally about to learn the truth, but would they be ready to see Juliet Prowse as more than just the glamorous star they had always admired? Would they be able to accept that beneath the beauty and fame, there was a story far more complicated than they ever imagined? The answer was about to be revealed, and it was more shocking than anyone could have predicted. Juliet Prowse lived a life most could only dream of. Fame, fortune, admiration from millions. But behind the glamorous image was a woman who had sacrificed more than anyone knew. Every step of her career was carefully crafted, every public appearance perfected, but beneath the surface, there was a weight she carried, a part of herself she kept locked away. She danced across the world's greatest stages, her beauty and talent making her unforgettable, but those who truly paid attention noticed something else, a flicker of sadness in her eyes, a hesitation in her smile, that came and went so quickly, it was almost impossible to catch. Was it regret? Was it longing? People speculated about her personal life, whispered about her love affairs, and questioned the choices she made. But Juliet never let anyone see past the surface. She was always in control, always maintaining the illusion that everything in her world was perfect. But was it? Despite the fame, despite the adoration, there were things she had given up. Decisions she had made that changed the course of her life forever. She had opportunities that others could only dream of, yet some doors had been permanently closed to her. What was it that kept her so guarded? Why, even in her most successful moments, did it feel like she was running from something? Those closest to her saw it, the way she sometimes withdrew, the way she avoided certain questions about her past, but no one dared press her. Juliet was not the type of woman to break down, not the type to reveal weakness, and so the world continued to see only the version of her that she allowed them to see. But a secret buried for so long can never stay hidden forever. It finds cracks, it waits for the right moment, and when it finally comes to light, it changes everything. The life she had built, the career she had protected, the choices she had made, all of it was connected to the truth she had kept hidden for 50 years. And now, as time marched forward and the past refused to stay buried, the question remained, what was Juliet Prowse hiding? And why had she worked so hard to ensure no one ever found out? Rumors followed Juliet Prowse wherever she went, but none of them ever seemed to stick. She was too elegant, too controlled, too careful with her words and actions. The world saw only what she allowed them to see, a confident, graceful woman who seemed untouched by scandal. But behind the polished image, something lingered. Over the years, whispers of a hidden chapter in her life grew louder, though no one could ever prove anything. There were moments, small but telling, where it seemed she was holding something back, as if the weight of a long-buried truth still pressed against her shoulders. She had mastered the art of dodging personal questions, giving just enough of an answer to satisfy curiosity without revealing anything real. It was this ability to remain an enigma that made her even more fascinating. People wondered about the things she left unsaid. There were stories about a great love she had walked away from, about a decision she had made that changed everything. Some believed she had been forced to give up something precious, while others thought she had chosen silence for reasons only she could understand. But why? What could be so important, so life-altering, that she kept it hidden for 50 years? The answer was buried beneath layers of time, concealed behind years of carefully crafted smiles and performances. And yet, there were always clues, little cracks in the perfect image. A look that lasted too long, a pause in an interview when asked about the past, a moment of vulnerability that slipped through when she thought no one was watching. Those who knew her best sometimes caught glimpses of the truth, but they never pushed her to speak. They understood that whatever it was, it had to be painful. Juliet had built her career on elegance and control, but deep down, she was still human. No one carries a secret for that long without it leaving a mark. And now, after all this time, the world was finally on the edge of discovering what she had hidden for so many years. But would the truth set her free, or would it rewrite everything people thought they knew about her? The moment of revelation was near, and there was no turning back. For decades, Juliet Prowse had managed to keep her secret locked away, hidden beneath the glittering lights of fame and the distractions of a successful career. But the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deeply it is buried. And now, as the years had passed, and time had worn away the walls she had so carefully built, the moment had come when she could no longer keep it hidden. The revelation was something no one had expected, something that changed the way people looked at her, something that made them question everything they thought they knew. It wasn't just a forgotten love affair or a career decision she regretted. It was something far more personal, something that had shaped her life in ways no one could have imagined. Those who had admired her from afar saw only the glamorous dancer, the beautiful actress, the confident woman who seemed to have it all, but they never knew the pain she had carried, the sacrifices she had made, the choices that had haunted her. There were moments in her past that she had never spoken about, not because she was ashamed, but because she had learned to live with them in silence. Perhaps she had believed that if she never spoke of them, they would lose their power over her. But the truth never disappears. It lingers, waiting for the right moment to come forward. And now, after 50 years, Juliet could no longer escape it. The world was about to see her in a new light, not just as a performer, but as a woman who had lived through something she had never been able to share. Some would understand, some would judge, but none of that mattered anymore. What mattered was that the truth was finally coming out, and once it did, there would be no way to go back. The truth was out, and the world was left in shock. For years, people had admired Juliet Prowse for her beauty, her talent, and her seemingly perfect life. But now, they were forced to see her as something more, a woman who had lived with a secret so powerful that it had shaped her entire existence. The revelation was not just surprising, it was heartbreaking. Those who had followed her career now questioned everything they had once believed about her. Every graceful performance, every dazzling smile, every interview where she spoke carefully but never too deeply, was all of it a mask? Had she spent her entire life hiding behind the bright lights of fame, hoping that no one would look too closely? It was easy to assume that celebrities had it all, that their lives were free from pain and regret, but Juliet's story proved otherwise. Even the most successful people carried burdens no one could see. Now, as the world processed the truth, the question remained: why had she hidden it for so long? What had kept her silent for 50 years? Had she been afraid of what people would think? Or had she been protecting someone? The more people tried to understand, the more they realized that there was still so much they didn't know. The truth may have come out, but it had only opened the door to more questions. Juliet had always been a mystery, and even in revealing her secret, she remained just out of reach. The world now saw her in a new light, but was it too late to truly understand her? Could anyone ever fully grasp the weight of what she had carried for so many years? The answers were complicated, but one thing was certain: Juliet Prowse was no longer just a Hollywood star with a dazzling smile. She was a woman who had lived a life far more complex than anyone had ever realized, and her story was finally being told. Now that the truth was out, everything had changed. Juliet Prowse was no longer just a name associated with elegance, beauty, and talent. She had become a symbol of resilience, of struggle, of a woman who had carried a secret for half a century. Some people saw her differently now, with a newfound admiration for her strength, while others questioned why she had chosen to keep it hidden for so long. But the one thing no one could deny was that her story had been rewritten. No longer just a Hollywood icon, she was now a woman who had lived through something so significant, so personal, that she had felt the need to bury it for 50 years. The world that had once adored her for her performances now saw her as something more than just a performer. They saw her as human. People revisited her interviews, her movies, her dance routines, and wondered if they had missed the signs all along. Had there been moments where she had tried to reveal her truth, only to hold herself back? Had her eyes, her voice, her body language told a story she had been too afraid to speak? The revelation changed how she was remembered, not erasing her past but adding depth to it. Some felt sadness for her, for the years she had spent holding this secret alone. Others felt admiration, realizing how much she had endured while still shining on stage. But for Juliet, it wasn't about how people saw her now. It wasn't about fame, about reputation, about the judgment, or the sympathy. It was about finally letting go of something that had weighed on her for so long. The burden was no longer hers to carry alone. The world finally knew, and with that, her legacy had transformed. Not just a dancer, not just an actress, but a woman who had lived with a hidden truth, and after 50 years, had finally allowed it to be known. And perhaps in that moment, she was finally free.